if they want to. Talk don't bother me. I want the whole wide world to know that I love you.
And welcome to Let 'Em Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo, and we have a great guest. Very interesting story. We're going to tell a sad story, but I think one that has to be told. Danette Chavis, welcome very much. Thank you for joining us here on Let Them Talk. So we're going to get right to it because Danette has a story of, just recently the governor of New York State has said that they're pretty much going to decriminalize or legalize possession of small amounts of marijuana because the records show that the stop and frisk program that's been going on has been using, once they frisk you and they look in your wallet and find a small amount of marijuana, which many young males want to carry, they arrest them for a serious charge, becomes a criminal record for something as minor as that. In a society where even the President of the United States has admitted to not only using marijuana, but selling it right here in New York himself. Let's face it, it's not uncommon such things happening. So they're going to decriminalize it, it seems. Now, I think that's sort of a sellout. I mean, I'm glad for the marijuana people, I guess it's a good thing, but it's a bit of a sellout because they're not dealing directly with the stop and frisk, and
exactly.
And they're doing everything to avoid and to be able to keep doing the stop and frisk.
Right. I think the issue isn't marijuana. I think the issue is the stop and frisk.
Yeah.
I think
they're trying to shift it to marijuana as the
yes,
issue.
they are, because the reason that they have all the police in the community stop and frisk and giving people summonses is because they claim that it's to prevent crime, when everybody knows that it's not to prevent crime. Their excuse for all the police that they flooded in the community and even in the schools is always to prevent crime. But when you look at the people that's been arrested, it doesn't justify the arrest that's been made, and it doesn't justify the summonses that's been issued.
Sure.
You've even had officers that come out and say that they were given directives to make arrests where no arrest was warranted, and to issue summonses where no summonses was warranted. So you have to wonder, what is it that they're really doing in these communities? Why are they trying to make a sense of control on certain populations within the community? And when you look in other neighborhoods, you don't see that same type of influx of police there. So that's an issue. Stop and frisk is just one issue. There's also the issue of we have an alarming rate of people being shot and killed by police, whether armed or not. And the police are being justified, and little no action is being taken against them. Right. There's literally no accountability for police officers who brutalize or kill people in the process of doing their jobs, and that has to stop.
Danette Chavis, thanks for joining us here on Let 'Em Talk, and I know that you have a specific story because we're getting right into it now. Your son Gregory in 2004 was killed by NYPD officers. You tell us the story. How did it happen? Well, I'm not sure what happened.
The circumstances surrounding my son's death was twofold.
Okay.
Initially, he got hit by a stray bullet that was intended for someone else. And as his friends were trying to take him to the hospital, which was 1 block away across the street, NYPD pulled up and demanded that they put him down, which they refused. He's hurt. We taking him right there because they wouldn't let them take him to the hospital. So when they withdrew their weapons and threatened to shoot them if they didn't, of course they put him down, and they were put inside the patrol car. And for some reason or another, they never called for an ambulance for my son. They say that they did, but what they called for was plenty of backup because crowds were drawing, fussing and cussing, where's the ambulance? And they never called an ambulance. So my son died on the curb across the street from Lincoln Hospital. And according to the medical examiner's report, he had every probable chance of survival had he gotten the medical attention that was needed. So
go ahead.
When I look at that situation, and I have to ask the question, why? Okay, my son wasn't a criminal. He wasn't in a process of a crime. He was a victim of a crime. And I have no other reason but to conclude that because of the color of his skin, because of the neighborhood that he lived in, that his life is not of value by the very ones who's supposed to protect and serve us. They took no regard for somebody here needs assistance. and they didn't give it to them.
Yeah.
I've never seen an officer of NYPD wounded and be allowed to lay in the curb and wait for an ambulance to come.
And you know, we had the family of Brianna Ojeda here a few months ago, and it sounds similar to what happened to her in the sense she was having a asthma attack,
Right.
and her mother was driving the wrong way down a one-way street to get her to the hospital, just a
Right.
few blocks from the hospital, and the police not only pulled her over and refused to let her go to the hospital,
Right.
even as her daughter was
Right.
dying of an asthma attack right there in front of him, and refused to let her go or to drive them or bring them. I mean, she wasn't resisting or anything. She
Right.
said, if you need to write me a ticket or arrest me,
Right.
fine, but first take my child to
Right.
the hospital.
All she
ref-
wanted
Yeah.
was assistance.
Yeah.
But instead, she got treated like she herself was a criminal.
Okay. So this is interesting. So, okay, so what in your opinion, well, let's tell the story first, because I have some questions about what you feel about how it happened. And, was there, these officers brought up on any sort of departmental charges? Was there any investigation by the NYPD?
Well, there was an investigation due to a lawsuit, and the lawsuit that was filed went directly to federal court.
Okay.
Because initially I didn't know the circumstances surrounding my son's death.
Okay.
It was only after having conversations and speaking with the boy's mother that she told me that her sons had said from day one that NYPD caused his death.
Okay.
But due to the tragedy of the situation, nobody didn't want to say on top of that he could have lived if only they had did this, that, and the third.
Okay.
So when I got the autopsy reports and read the police report, you know, the police report was wrong. It had misinformation on there. And like I said, when the medical examiner read the autopsy report, he concluded, yes, your son had every probable chance of survival. So we filed a lawsuit. But by that time, the statute of limitations had expired. So the only option was for it to go to federal court, you know,
I
as
see,
a
right.
civil violation.
Sure,
That
civil
they
rights, right.
violated his civil rights and depriving him the medical attention, he lost his life.
That's where the case is now?
That's where the case was until January. After 7 years, this has been going on of back and forth through
Yes.
court, adjournments, postponing, you know, them lying, them saying we lost our investigative file to we have our investigative file, until finally the judge directed us to trial. And in January, when we started the selection of jurors, they put forth another appeal, you know, on the case. And somehow or another, I don't know what happened, but the case in its entirety was dismissed.
Really?
Yes.
On a technicality?
It was totally, to me, when I read the decision of the judge, it seems that the courts have accepted the account of NYPD. Word verbatim. Whatever they said they did is taken to be as fact.
Who's the judge? Do you know?
I don't remember her name, no. But the main reason why I'm here is because I have a petition
Yeah.
that is demanding nationwide action against police brutality, because nationwide police are brutalizing and killing people, whether armed or unarmed,
Sure.
and there's literally no accountability for their actions.
Where can people access the petition to
They
sign
can
it?
go to change.org and go to the criminal justice section, and you can find a petition there. You may have to scroll down to 6 or 7 pages, but the easiest way is if you go on Facebook and you look up National Action Against Police Brutality, you can click on and sign the petition from there. And it's imperative that everybody signs this petition so that we can move forward with the action that we're requiring, because there must be accountability from law enforcement, not just here in New York, but across the United States. Because when you look across the United States, you see the same brutalities, the same assassinations occurring, and little or no accountability, and enough is enough.
Use the word assassination.
Yes, because when you run up on somebody and they have no gun in their hands and you literally shoot them, I don't know what else to call it. Okay, here in New York right now, it's 4 months since Ramarley Graham, an 18-year-old who was accused of having a weapon, told to stop and ran. That's the account that was given by NYPD when they didn't realize that their actions were being videotaped.
Okay.
But when you see the videotape, you see Ramarley Graham calmly walking into his house, and then second later, NYPD following behind them and literally trying to bulldoze the door in with their body, kicking it and banging on it with their hands, with guns in their hands. And once they get into the apartment, they run up to the bathroom and they shoot him. And guess what? No weapon. But 4 months after the fact, Nobody has been arrested and nobody has been charged, and those officers are still working with NYPD. Now, the family has had weekly vigils, 18 weeks of vigils they're having for every year of his life.
Every Thursday night.
Every Thursday night. And during those vigils, we've had ministers come and demand for justice, imams come and demand for justice, politicians come and demand for justice, but guess what? Those officers are still working. So what does it take in order for somebody to get justice against NYPD? Since those people, the commissioner and the state attorney generals and the DA refuse to do what needs to be done.
I don't know what more to add to that, because you've said it as much as anybody could ever say it, and we're going to talk more about it in a minute. 212-757-1538. Danette Chavis here with us in the studio, talking about her son, who is apparently allowed to die by officers who didn't want to take action. This is the second story we've had on this show in the last year where this has happened in in New York City, and it makes you wonder, because they say protect and serve. Where's the protection? Where's the serving there?
And I'll tell you something, I really see it as a pattern. If it's not stopped here, I see it as a growing pattern that will become the norm, where people will be shot and killed, whether unarmed or not, and nobody will be held accountable for it. How do you have, politicians, ministers of the cloth, and people in the surrounding community, okay, the same people you say that you're supposed to protect and serve, how do you have them come out day after day after day and demand justice? Why do they even have to demand justice? Why does the family who is bereaved already have to protest and march and demand that you do what you're supposed to do in accordance to the law? And how do you as a commissioner sit up there and know all of this and not take any action? You can't pass it over to the DA and say, well, we're waiting for him to bring about charges, because that's your officer and he violated departmental procedure. So you can take action against him even for that, but he still works for you. So apparently you don't see anything wrong in the way they handle it.
Charges at
None.
all?
They're working. They're working. Okay? How can you as an officer bust in a home without a warrant, without permission? Okay, you're not even trained for the operation that you're on, and in the process kill a man, and you still work for NYPD? At the minimum, you could have been on administrative leave pending an investigation, but not even that. You're allowed to work for NYPD. So what the hell is going on in New York City? Why is the commissioner not taking any action? And why do families and communities and politicians have to get out there and insist you do what you're supposed to do? And I'm talking to the commissioner, and I'm talking to the DA, and I'm talking to the state attorney, who have failed to take any action, not just in Ramarley Graham, but in a host of cases of police brutality, that they sit up there and act like they don't know what's going on, when they know good and well that it is. A whole lot of people are killed and brutalized in silence. The only reason why we heard about Trayvon Martin is because his lawyer had the foresight to publicize the fact that he filed a lawsuit requesting information that is public. Okay, I want you to understand, here is a child that's been killed, been missing for 3 days, family calling hour after the hour, and it takes 3 days for them to even be notified your child is dead. And then you have an individual who killed him after being told by the police, fall back, take no action, and he kills them. Okay, and then when the families contact an attorney and the attorney requests for information, the police tells them, we are not giving you nothing. This is public information that we're talking about. And they're saying, you're not getting nothing. So at that point, he filed the lawsuit. And when he filed the lawsuit, he made the issue public of the lawsuit. And when that happened, people began to question, well, why isn't this man arrested? Why is there no charges? Okay, and so the demand began. And also a petition began where people were signing and insisting this man be charged, this man be arrested. And at that point, the Department of Justice went down to Sanford and began to investigate. Now question, why did it take nearly 2 million signatures for the Department of Justice to go down there and look into a situation where an unarmed 17-year-old was killed? okay, and where the person who killed him was not tested for drugs, was not tested for gun residue, was not held pending any investigation, but was let to go home on about his business, you should have been down there at that point. It shouldn't have took nearly 2 million people to insist in justice for you to come out of Washington and go down there. No, 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 no. And that's one of thousands of cases that we have been made aware of as a result of those things. Like I said, look at Ramarley Graham here in New York. Who outside of New York knows about Ramarley Graham?
Tell us about this list that's on the wall behind us now.
It is a list of names of people who have been killed, brutalized, murdered, that was compiled by the October 22nd Coalition in order to document these things. Because if these things are not documented, they go unheard of, nobody hears about it, and since the powers that be are ignoring it, it appears that it isn't happening. But it is happening, and on a scale larger than we all can imagine. But that list is the name of people who over the years have been killed by NYPD, who have not received justice, who have also had to go out and march and beg and plead for justice. And we are saying enough is enough. It's time for Eric Holder, because he is the Attorney General in Washington, okay, the chief law enforcer, and he has the responsibility to deal with issues in law, whether it be on the state level or the government level, where there's lawlessness. He has a responsibility and a duty to investigate and get involved and remedy it, and he has not done that. So apparently he needs some help in directing and as far as what it is that he's supposed to do. Because the reason that police brutality has escalated and is increasing to the level that it has is because the state attorney generals within these states, they're not doing their job. And the DA is not doing their job. And so the commissioners is not doing their job. So you have law enforcement that's running a free-for-all on people all over the place, to the point where the police are in your schools, they're in your communities. Okay, you can't even go out underneath the law and protest for rights without being arrested and handcuffed. Okay, what is that about?
Have you been arrested in any of his protests?
No.
I'm glad.
I don't intend to.
I think they're afraid. They probably stay away from you.
I don't intend to, and I don't intend for this to go on for anybody. It's going on far too long. Matter of fact, it should have never occurred in the first place.
Now, you were mentioning you have a petition. You know, we were speaking about petitions, and there's a petition in your case. Can you tell people again where they can hook up to that petition, what it's about, and where they can go to find out?
You can look it up on www.
What's the petition say? What does it ask for?
The name of the petition is called National Action Against Police Brutality. And if you go to change.org and you look in the criminal justice section, you will find the petition there. You know, or if you're on Facebook, most everybody is these days, you can search in the search bar for National Action Against Police Brutality, and you can click on the title, and it will take you directly to where you can sign the petition.
And we'll try and take your calls if you want to call. Our number is there on the screen. I think it's on the screen. It's 212-757-1538, 212-757-1538. And let's continue on and talk, go back again. Let's revisit your case, because this was a personal tragedy for you. How exactly did your son, Gregory, wind up in a situation where his life was in the hands of someone who obviously didn't care?
You know, that's a good question, and I'm sure that's the question a lot of mothers, fathers have asked when they found themselves in similar circumstances, where they lost their father or their loved one or their son. You know, how do you explain the unexplainable? You know, people are quick to say, you know, don't make it a racist issue, but when you look at the majority of people who is being killed or falsely arrested, or where the police are concentrated, it's in communities of people of color. Okay, and I believe personally that because this has gone on for so long unchecked, it's now to the point where it is affecting all people. You know, we're getting stories now about people, regardless of race, regardless of nationality, that are being attacked and being brutalized by police. Okay, and the situation is the same. You know, nobody is held accountable. You know, so it makes you wonder exactly what are they doing here in the United States? You know, are they trying to turn the United States into a police state? What exactly is going on? You know, you cannot, just recently we we just finished celebrating Memorial Day,
Yeah.
you know, to pay homage to people who died for rights and freedoms in this country. But hello, where are they? Because as I look, we're continually being stripped of all our rights, all our civil liberties, you know, let alone houses, jobs, and benefits, everything. Everything.
And since they've done studies, and there's no connection between a reduction or increases of crime with these tactics by the police. I mean, they say they've taken a few hundred guns off the streets out of millions, out of 200 million guns in America.
No,
and there's,
NYPD is claiming that their policies, stop and frisk, are successful because they say that the numbers have gone down for crime. But the reality is the crime rate, the numbers that they're quoting, fell before they started this mass influx of police in a community. So do not take credit where credit is not due. If you want to take credit for them officers that you're putting out there on the street and giving them carte blanche to arrest and kill people for no reason whatsoever.
I guess they can't, in their statistics, can't take that maybe people after a period of time in the early 1990s when there was a lot of shootings going on decided to stop doing that and stop smoking crack as much and stop getting involved in criminal activities as much and get a job. Maybe that's really what happened.
The fact of the matter is
That is what happened, actually.
You can't violate people's rights in the name of protecting and serving them.
Yeah.
You know, it's no such thing.
Right.
You know, you have to be lawful. You know, if you're law enforcement, you know, you're not absolved from following the law. You know, you have to do your duties within the framework of the law, just like everybody else.
Sure.
You get no special privileges, but we see that they are afforded special privileges. Most people I know in communities where I live, if accused of a crime, within 72 hours, they will be charged and they were brought before the judge.
Right.
If an officer of NYPD kills a man, okay, it's no accuse. We know you did it. It's no illusion of the imagination whether or not he had a gun. He didn't have one, but you still working. Why is there the disparity? Why when an officer has committed a crime, they give him every benefit of the doubt there is. It's like they break their neck, their back, and their face, trying not to bring charges against him. But if it were you and I, within 72 hours, if not quicker, we'd be locked up and we'd be in jail.
Why do you think there's this discrepancy? This double standard. It's a double standard, really, right?
It is definitely a double standard. How else could you paint it? What could you say about it? You sure can't say you're trying to protect anybody because you're doing such harm, irreparable harm. You know, so what do you call it? You call it preventing crime. Well, who's preventing your officers? Because they're committing a crime while they claim to be preventing crimes by harassing people and brutalizing people. So go prevent that crime.
Now, let's talk, since, I mean, the issues, it has come up, I mean, especially, maybe it's not so much in New York, but in Chicago, there is a tremendous amount of young people who are killing each other. And there is tremendous concern in community and in the nation as a whole for that. I think a righteous concern about crime and about folks going to guns and shooting each other over the most minor of things. Where does that come from? Why do we have that in society? How can we get away with that, get away from that? And do you have any thoughts on that?
How can you be an individual and live in a community where you're literally under a police state 24/7, okay? You have outsiders coming into your community to police you, and upon sight, you're automatically deemed as a criminal, okay? And you're subject to whatever treatment they want to bestow upon you. On top of that, when you go to school, you're surrounded by police who will arrest you if they don't like your attitude or if you don't have school ID on your person. Now, why anybody should be arrested because they don't have school ID when you're enrolled in the school and you're known to the teachers is beyond me, but this is what they do. It's difficult enough for an adult to deal with the daily assaults of life on their person and on their mental. You're talking about young men and young women who are dealing with these daily assaults by the authorities in society whom society expects that they should respect. And the majority of these young people's attitudes is F you. Because I look at you and I see your lawlessness, I see your corruptness, I see you don't care about nothing. You know, I see how you ship and shape the law according to your own desires. Why should I listen to you? Why should I follow you? And it creates a type of despair within the individual. Plus the fact that You're talking about a population that's literally cut off from mainstream society.
Yeah.
You know, not wanted, not allowed in, not even provided the necessary tools to even enter in due to the flaw of the school system itself.
Sure.
So if all of that, plus the fact you have no father there, you come from a broken home, et cetera, how the hell are you supposed to come up as a sane, sound, peaceful individual? How do you not come up with a sense of desperation? How do you not come up feeling like, by all means, somebody's going to respect me? If you step on me, if you anything, because they say, oh, for little or nothing, they shoot you. Yes, because respect is everything to them. You might not like it, you might not agree with it, but it is what it is. You know, and until the people...
When you don't get any respect, it becomes very important.
Listen.
It's easy to say, oh, so he disrespected me because I get it all the time.
People in places of authority, they know what it is because they created it.
Right.
Okay? You can't create laws, you know, that's super severe on one end for a drug, okay, and lenient on this end and say, well, all y'all in jail.
Right.
And how come
and
these
those the
people are
Rockefeller
not?
drug laws were a perfect example of that. And you never really see anybody in the community of North Yonkers where I grew up. I never saw it ever happen.
Yeah.
Anybody ever
If I,
arrested.
you know, if I was a young male and I had no options, school is not an option. I have no skills. I have no options to get a job, and the government is steadily supplying drugs in my community to. I make use.
And I had my students come to me and say, a fifth grade, sixth grade kid come to me and say, what am I supposed to think when I see an officer taking a paper bag through the window of a police car from somebody I know what they're doing?
Exactly. And that is
and they say to me with tears in their eyes, what am I supposed to say?
That is a key reason why a lot of youth have no respect or regard for the police, because they have seen the dirt and the things that they do. So when you turn to them and you say, walk the chalk,
right,
they're like, yeah, you first.
Now,
show me how that go. I follow your lead. You first.
When you talk about the police, you talk about every single police. Are there any good cops out there? Are there any individuals who come there with any sort of desire to do good? Or
you know what? I believe that there are a lot of cops that enter in on the force with good intentions. The problem is by the time they get through with you, those good intentions will be right out the door. You know, you cannot, especially when you see the results of what they're doing across the nation, you know, and officers are well commended and well promoted and well revered and respected by their other officers. You that cop, because you don't take no mess. You know, they get a lot of respect and admiration like that. So while they talking about thugs in the hood who do crazy stuff out of respect, look at you. Okay, because y'all got that going on in the precinct too. But you can come into a precinct and you can have good intentions and want to be the cop to do the right thing. But how can you, when you have to have officers...
we just don't have enough time. We have to have another half hour. 20 seconds. Where should people go to sign your petition?
www.change.org. The petition is called National Action Against Police Brutality, or Facebook. National Action Against Police Brutality.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry for your tragedy, but thanks for turning it into something good.
Thank you.
All right. See you next week.